Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, and if any member of the public would like to sign up for a comment, do so in the chat on the Zoom or in the back of the room. The sign-up sheet right here in the person.
So, bring this meeting to order. Thank you all for coming and appreciate everyone's time. And yes, we can, before we get into the agenda discussion, we can talk about the BPL opening statement. The trustees of the Boston Public Library reaffirm our commitment to racial equity and to principles of diversity, equity, inclusion more broadly. The library is formally committed to becoming an anti-racist organization in response to systemic racism, inequality, inequity, and injustice prevalent in our society. We acknowledge also that the BPL Central Library stands on land that was once water-based ecosystem providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people, a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst nations. We are committed to land acknowledgements for all locations at which we operate. We reaffirm this commitment to set the context for planning, deliberations, and public engagement so that they may take place in the spirit of welcome and respect found in our motto. All. But I memorized that by the end of it.
You will.
Got it. So roll call. Stop that.
Sure. Evelyn Ortiz.
Here.
Joe Berman.
Here.
Chuck Horton will be absent today. John Heiler.
Here.
Chuck Bobby will be absent today. Ray Lewis.
Here.
Christian Westrom.
Here.
We have a forum, and I do want to acknowledge that we are also being joined by trustee Jose C.
Folks have been distributed on the onboard system for our September 13th, 2024 meeting minutes, where we had a chance to discuss the evolving strategic plan. Looking for a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Great. All approve, aye.
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 All nays? Any nays? None? So approved. Great. So in terms of welcome remarks, again, thank you all for being here. This is coming down to a momentous time for us. And of course, we're talking about the finalization of the strategic plan for the Boston Public Library. A lot of hard work by everybody within this room, but especially the trustees. Huge credit to, of course, Christian and Jose. Thank you very much for co-chairing this committee. And we did a lot of work at the last meeting. And since then, there have been at least a steering committee meeting and multiple back and forths that really took the information and took the feedback that we got at the last meeting into heart and made some changes to where we are right now. We'll go through a formal agenda, but I had to think through sort of what's our main goal here today. The main goal is, as the executive committee, to review the strategic plan as it stands, and in a best possible outcome, would say, feel great about this, feel inspired by the strategic plan, and recommend wholeheartedly for discussion at the Board of Trustees meeting that's coming up in a few weeks in November. I say for discussion at the Board of Trustees meeting. I only say that because the way that I think that we want to spend some time at the Board of Trustees meeting is a discussion point, people to understand, see what they're seeing, and then maybe call for a formal vote afterwards. So that would be best possible outcome, but we also understand that that we do not want to rush anything through. If we're not where we're at right now, then we'll have another meeting and we can always push back agenda items at the board. So we have flexibility, right? With that in mind, maybe next slide. Do you want to walk through this?
For sure. So on the left, we've got our proposed agenda for this evening. Again, we can flexibly shift this around as we need. And on the right, just for wayfinding through the document, the table of contents. So our agenda roughly follows the table of contents, working through the plan with a little bit of more emphasis on strategic goals and overall storytelling for this group, but also making sure that we're sort of reviewing and presenting all of the chapters. So as far as Ray mentioned, the primary goal of the meeting objective today is reaching convergence, that we're moving towards the approved plan, recognizing any additional feedback or directional aspects. And we also want to, again, thank all of the comments that came in from the various stakeholders involved, as well as our discussion at the last meeting. We've worked really hard to try to add in more ambitious wording, level up some of the strategic goals, and sort of bring in that storytelling that was a big part of the discussion from last time. So these are the time blocks as proposed, but happy to edit. We're hoping to use the beginning to talk about the beginning. The introduction, values, vision, and mission sections, we'll do a page turn through these, some of the additional storytelling within it, but also under the assumption that there's a little bit less for discussion in this chapter, that we could target sort of first 30 minutes for that. Then we'll get into the strategic goals, looking at them at a glance, and then as needed, we can jump throughout the section to zoom into the initiatives or framing of each of the roles. This we're hoping for about 45 minutes. Next one is a presentation of the organizational readiness chapters and the activating the strategic plan. These are the lower sections in the document. Again, hoping a little bit more of a page turn, advocating for about 20 minutes in these sections, but again, we can stretch as needed. And then we also included the appendix on financial benchmarks, which we can present today, or if we need to shift some of that time to earlier sections, we can share that out for review, along with closing thoughts. We heard there's a few participants that need to leave at 6:30, and we want to make sure that we're maintaining a quorum. Any questions or any adjustments to make to that timeline for now?
Just comment in terms of where this group can add the most value. It likely comes in item number 2, which is the review and discussion of the strategic goals, and we'll review the initiatives as well too, but really at that goal level. I don't necessarily think, and please others should speak otherwise, that we want to be wordsmithing necessarily the values and vision and mission or adding on new strategic roles at this point in time. But on the other hand, we also acknowledge that everyone should feel free to provide feedback and we'll make changes as necessary. But number 2 is really where, at least I'd like to see the heart of the matter discussion occur. I was remiss, Christian, sorry for the cold call, but anything else to add as we kick up things off?
No, I think it's exactly right.
Okay. Sounds good. So working our way through the introduction, I'll pause for the sirens. Hopefully they're not visiting here. But in general, we really wanted to bring this up to setting that context of the library as being an innovator, a pioneer within the market since the very beginning, since its charter in 1848. I won't read the entire page, but speaking to that this is time for a new revolution in library services, but we have been making innovative, revolutionary ideas throughout our history, speaking to some of the uniqueness of the library itself, as well as why update our plan now to meet the changing needs of the library and our duty to address our evolving roles. This is paired with additional context around what is the current situation for the library, that we're continuing to build on our strengths, continuing to be a beacon of learning, democracy, innovation, and possibility, but also recognizing that we have some current challenges that we're facing as far as a large portfolio, some funding constraints and legacy physical infrastructure that will be challenging within our current context, but really leaning into our changing roles within the HHS department within the City of Boston. I didn't present that fully, but setting the context as far as from the very beginning, we have made new choices for libraries in America, bringing this into the current context of we want to build on our strengths and really lean into how we are reaching towards the full City of Boston, but recognizing some of our existing challenges that this plan will ignite and excite for future goals and initiatives.
Can I?
Yes, of course.
David and Michael. On the map, there's certain branches that are like, what do they call them? Anchor branches, like Roxbury. But you know what I may be me speaking in terms of the term, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
There are larger ones that have served the role as a district level branch.
But we no longer have that. We don't do that anymore.
We don't do that anymore. Okay, because that's what I was gonna call out, because we have referenced that, and actually that was one of the things that we talked about when we did the renaming of Roxbury, as you all know, I'm very sensitive to Roxbury. So when I see Roxbury clustered with Parker Hill and Connolly so close together, I don't see it it's just the eyesight, right? So I don't see it as one of those district type branches that we have referred to in the past, but you're not saying that we do that anymore. But the question that I have,
The question that I wanted to say, Dudley shouldn't be there.
I know, see, that's,
I think the
yes,
label has hopped.
yes, so that's something I want to call out, but.
Yep.
But what I wanted to say is, in terms of the color coding, I've always thought that Roxbury was more encompassing and larger, but the color coding doesn't actually demonstrate that. So how accurate is that? It's one question. And are there, and then when I think of others, is that applicable to others, is what I was gonna say. That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
For one, I think there's,
because people are visual.
yes,
So, so what I'm questioning is the level of accuracy, and I think that it should, just take a separate look, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
And I expect it to resolve it here.
probably add most likely, comes down to single-family housing, triple deckers versus high-rises and concentration populations.
But
If
yeah,
you walk around Dudley Square, there's not a ton of high-rise.
they must,
apartment
they must have statistics on it.
Yeah, they do, but
That's
This
what
is a
I thought.
representation of density.
Yeah,
Not of-
that's all it is. It's a
That's what
density
they're at.
map, and this is pretty spot on.
Yeah,
If you look at our voting.
though I will say the Roxbury label appears to be in the wrong place on the map.
Yeah.
And I think
Sure.
that we can definitely fix,
Yeah.
but the blue color coding, darker blue is more people per square mile.
Yeah.
Lighter blue is less
Yeah, it's a
people per square mile.
density issue.
Yeah.
Again, the point of this map is really the bottom left paragraph here, right? That's the main point, which is, let's lean into our strengths of people being within walking distance.
Yeah, a very wide catchment.
The percentage of people like within a 15-minute walk, or isn't there some stat?
73%.
It's up on the screen, which I can't read, okay.
That's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
which is
great.
an incredibly good
It really is.
catchment.
Okay, so sorry to divert, but
That's okay,
That's-
but it's a good call out to, that label is incorrect, and let's make sure that's up to date. I think it's just on traveling on us, but.
One thing I note is, I don't see, and maybe it's too much hype, but the concept of digital within the text. And I may make a play that that's an important part of the context of where we're heading to the next 5 years.
And sort of reaching beyond the city itself.
Say it again?
Reaching beyond the city itself, but the
Yeah.
shift to greater digital footprint, greater digital connection.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the point of these two slides is A, to showcase our pioneering spirit, but also B, sort of answer a bit of a question, why now? Why are we engaged in this exercise, right? And part of it is the external forces at play here. And I would think digital's a huge part of that.
There are digital equity gaps right across Boston
100%.
that you won't necessarily pick up on from this map, but it's still a part of our conversation.
Yeah, I think, Aaron, you touched on digital a little bit in why update our plan now, but maybe we could expand that a bit to Grace's point. I think just stepping back though, it seems like big picture, these slides are responsive to the feedback that you got. I at least see a lot of the themes in terms of pioneering work the library has done right through this, but if people think this is not responsive or not sufficiently reflective of
not just looking, I was looking at
Yeah.
four different eyes.
But it's
so
a
that's-
great catch though,
that's
because
why-
that label is definitely,
So sorry, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that.
I know, it's important. Okay. And then flipping through values, vision and mission, sorry, I had a tray in front of the word. Again, I'll just go through these. We have updated some of the wording to the values reflecting how free to all can continue to evolve beyond free access to books and buildings, representing the freedom to grow, to question, to create and belong, and a promise defined since 1848 that will guide us into the future. Some of that is new wording. We did get a question on, is there any particular logic to the ordering on the right? It was just phrasing. So if there is any desire to change the poem around, we're happy to shift. And then the core value of free to all, the vision has had some minor tweaks around we believe in an inclusive community propelled by curiosity, connection, and the pursuit of knowledge. And mission, we will open a world of discovery and learning to enrich lives and elevate every community.
I like the tweaks on syntax and so I think that's read well.
I was going to comment and say, thank you for listening. So those look great.
I think when I was walking up to the library, I saw on the very top text and learning within the cornice, and I'm like, oh. Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm going against myself here. Like, we're not necessarily discussing, but one thing I heard last time is how do we make sure that those phrases might be unique to the library, right?
Mm-hmm.
You use this for, I'll say the Science Museum. And I don't have a solution, so maybe my comment more of is a comment without a solution, but I leave it to the rest, whether that's important or not. Otherwise, I like it.
I mean, it comes back to what I've been sort of banging my drum about the word literacy or something about reading or books. I mean, that's cognitive encompassed within knowledge. But knowledge is so general that it could be, the Science Museum or.
Yeah, but the library's more than.
It's more than just
books.
reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I think knowledge fits it. My only words that would be elevate every individual and community. To me, getting down to specific human, some people don't feel like they're a part of a community. So
Individual and community.
it's not a bad idea. Every individual stands out. In his own way.
Yeah.
I've also come to peace with, you have to read the whole thing as a block to get all of the
Right.
pieces,
Yes.
as opposed to
Thank you.
hoping each sentence can jump out at
And
us.
to that point, I think the reading theme and literacy come through quite clearly in the lifelong learning and research department.
Great point. Stand corrected.
Okay. So the next section, as we know, is strategic roles, goals, and initiatives. Going quickly because we've seen most of this before.
What I was going to comment, no, you can move to the next. What I was going to comment is a comment that I made to David, is I'm glad that you walked away from the cliche phrases and be more, I want to say, the phrasing looks more legitimate than cliche, and I do appreciate that.
There may be one or two words here and there that we still have to
I'll
work
follow
on,
you on
but I do think the work that Lisa and others did on the jargon side of it moved it to something that is very much part of us.
And I do like seeing a love of reading, discovery, and scholarly. That kind of answers my questions.
And I'd echo that shout out. A lot of that is not our team. It's been some very deep edits from the BPL leadership and management team in the last week. For better or worse, I can't claim those.
Team effort.
There we go. So there's two ways we can navigate through this section. Again, we wanted to spend some detailed time with the strategic goals. There's a lot on this page. It is all the goals at a glance. We can have the discussion around this graphic up here, or we can go through the section as a whole, but we just wanted to give those two
Can I
options.
ask real quick before we move on?
Mhm.
Is this going to get picked apart again? Like, like, when do we finally stop saying comments, wordsmithing this? Will that ever end, or will that go? Can we kind of say tonight?
Can I say it in my own words? Can we please not split hairs?
Yeah, so can we, tonight is?
Today.
Okay, good.
Tonight, that's
Thank
the
you.
goal, is to have a version that we feel really excited by this group in particular.
Okay.
That we feel that we can push out to.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure on that. I don't want to go through
And
this.
that doesn't mean that the feedback doesn't lead to some changes, right?
Of course.
Right. I think this is the area where we might have some changes, where missing something, not prioritizing something, and or something should go away, for example.
Thank you.
And to note, in the actual sequence, this goals at a glance does not suddenly appear after roles. It is in the last chapter. We just pulled a copy of it forward for today's discussion. So if it's helpful, I can run through the section as we have done previously, or if we want to start here.
I think we talked about, just so we have some framing reference, that we would try to talk about sort of one of those colors just for a little bit, get some time on it. So I don't know whether people can read it best here, or if you want to read it sort of
In each section.
Yeah, in the section itself.
How about we start through the section, and if we need to come back here to see them at a glance, we can.
I was gonna say, you're not picking on the colors, are you?
They're buckets.
Next.
Zoom in. So I will say the goals within the roles section live both on the first page so that you have all four together, and then alongside the initiatives on these pages. I think the one edit that I think is helpful for wayfinding is there is kind of a mini version of each goal across the top so that you can see at a glance. You have Ignite Young Minds, Advance Youth, Support Lifelong Growth. And then on the last one, preserve and make accessible our heritage and history. So you can absorb both what's the key takeaway of each of the goals alongside the longer wording of the goals itself. The framework still includes a key initiative for each, and then the additional initiatives following underneath. And I'll leave this up for a minute for absorbing, but if it's helpful to see all four on the same page, I can go back to the prior.
Don't want to talk too much, but I think, again, guiding our discussion, perhaps, at least initially, we can go through this, each of the pillars on the goal language there, right, underneath the italics there. So, for example, focusing on the elevate BPL's role as extraordinary hub, focusing on launch the next generation, excellence, focusing on champion adults' aspirations, right? And let's create some space that we can comment on that, and then we can maybe come down to some of the distinct initiatives, which is a cascade down. But did we get the goals right?
I've personally been going around today saying how much I love the word ignite.
I'm not gonna say anything at the moment, but yes, because it's, yes, I said it earlier.
So
Thank you for listening.
Action.
Because when I first opened the document, I was like, yes, I'm inspired. Yes, the language is so much better.
And is this a place where you want to put in, when you look at lifelong, learning and research partner, anything about other organizations, whether it's the Boston Public Schools, maybe it's another research library, maybe it's, there's a lot of groups that we do deal with, and those partnerships will have the potential of being important, and they have been important for certain circumstances. Is that something we want to do here, or is it something we should put into the text later on? But it's, I think, partnering and being on the forefront of trying to organize that connectivity between groups in the city and Massachusetts might be a good idea. I don't know.
So isn't that captured later though?
No, that's what I'm asking.
The schools are in here, particularly to youth, particularly. And then I think we felt that partnerships actually span all of the roles. So I think it shows up in the trusted resource section as an explicit initiative.
Okay, so
Right.
I'll live with that. I just think it's so important to the library that I don't know if it should be a sentence up here, but that's okay with me if it's in the back as long as it's covered.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. We had, in a different version of this, a slightly different flavor to the initiative, building on the success of the Kirsten Business Library and the Entrepreneur Residence Program, and partnering with university businesses to provide increased resources called Inspiring Entrepreneurs. We had previously had partner with local universities, businesses, and professional services firms to create a small business incubator for aspiring entrepreneurs, which is just, they're similar concepts, but that was one idea that we were trying to get at.
Okay.
I think the other tension, which I think applies on this point, was ensuring the initiative calls us to be broadly thinking of what we want to do under this without being so prescriptive as to individual either programs or partners. I think we've realized in working with this model from Gensler
Yep.
that we have implementation planning work to do after the plan itself is baked
100%, yep.
that could call out more of the specifics.
Yeah, I mean, I was just, I, even if it's a hokey kind of response, I was thinking, no. If you are trying to partner, and it's gonna be covered in text, as you would say, knowledge partners, because there's a lot of other groups that we're gonna need to lean on in the city if we're gonna execute on this. And acknowledging them up front, either as knowledge partners or other learning centers, might be worthwhile, but I'm not gonna, it's not a hill that's that important to me, that's all.
Yeah, I'd say I really like that, right? And I am looking through the rest. I'd say let's put a pin on it and see whether we actually come back to it. I just will say that I don't see it as a goal level concept.
Okay.
And maybe there's an opportunity to do that, either trusted resource and or community engager.
That's exactly, something like that term, yeah.
But it probably should
Yeah.
rise up as.
Or specifically in the implementation as well, I think is a piece that in rolling all of this out that we're seeking to work with partners, I think there's a couple homes we may be able to.
Yeah, I think that's a good place for it. I
Yeah.
think that was one thing that struck me as still missing from the enablers or whatever we're calling them, that partnership is probably one that we want to include in there, along with a couple other things. But I agree with everyone that the language is definitely more ambitious and improved from my perspective. One global comment. How confident are we that we've really pinpointed the key initiative in each of these columns? An alternative would be just to remove the concept entirely and put the most important one on the top. I don't necessarily feel strongly, but I don't know that we've necessarily really carefully thought through which of these is the number one thing that we want to say is the key initiative. And that's just a global comment.
Are you talking about 1, 2, and 3, or are you?
I guess it's
talking
the-
about-
Well, there's a fourth one.
Yeah, it's a global comment. Do we want the concept of these red boxes that describe things as key initiatives? Have we really thought carefully enough to say that that is the one thing we want to say is the key initiative from each column? Or would we rather be a little softer and maybe delete the boxes and just put the try to stack them most important and least important? It's more just
Did you clean it up to so many words and so, I mean, just.
Yeah, it's just, I guess it's more of a general process question. I don't feel that strongly, but I'm also not 100% confident that we've gone through this and really done the thinking to identify.
Well, we already have roles and goals and initiatives, like how much hierarchy can be?
And the key initiatives were introduced as a response to something earlier before the goals.
I would be inclined to get rid of it, honestly. I would just order them from most important to least important. But again.
Were you talking about the columns?
No, just
Yeah.
the boxes.
Just that-
Just take the box away.
Yeah.
The box
Remove the box.
And the term key initiative.
Yes, that's what I'm
Keep it as a.
Just keep, yeah.
And save those and add the text later on if you want. Okay.
Simplification is certainly.
Yeah.
I agree.
Sort of related to that, my question was, we number these 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 on the other page. Is that in order of priority, or is that, can we not
So maybe take the
take the numbers away?
We can definitely take the numbers.
I read
away.
that and I
like-
think that's my
like
number
that.
one.
That's a good thought. I like that too.
I think so too. Yeah, it was a little bit for wayfinding for just workability for our group, but I don't see it, I think it adds a complexity that we don't really need.
It
So
implies prior.
it implies prioritization versus just what order they happen to be in the documents. So I think we can definitely pull the numbers.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
On the other slide, the one before this one. So on the left, we have advanced youth opportunities. On the right, we have how we live in this world. Where do I see the youth program in there? By youth, like the teen centers and things like that.
So these ones are a bit of an index of what's on the next page, but are you saying all being reflective of all of the youth programming within the?
Well, I mean, because we list how we live this role. And I was
Oh, and it's,
And there's nothing about youth,
okay.
Can I,
except the story time.
well, I was gonna say though,
I mean, story time to me is
Right.
when I the youth, I'm thinking about teens.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about the teen center here, the teen center Mattapan, teen center in Hyde Park. I'm just wondering, is that an omission or do we even have to highlight
Well, what I
that?
was gonna say is about how do we live this role? To me, that's implementation.
Right?
I don't see that, that, to me, that's kind of out of place. Like, to me, that's an implementation plan. That's basically, this is how we live it, it's
Supposed to be what we're
implementation.
doing now.
Yeah, but this is a strategic plan, right?
But
It's what are we doing in the future, so what do we need to know what
Yeah, it's a little
happens
bit-
now?
I think I think those are both good comments. I think if we have it, it should be comprehensive and it should include things like the teen centers. If I query whether we actually need to describe things that we were currently.
Does this concern apply to the community needs column as well, or is it really about the how we live this role section?
We live this role, I think.
I was looking at it from the how we live this
Okay.
role.
Yeah, I agree.
To me, it seems right. Articulate, you know, what the gaps are.
Yeah, the community needs, I think it's appropriate to be there. How do we live this role? To me, that's implementation. And I know that that's not an inclusive list.
And that,
Which is
this
what
problem will
Jose
recur in each of the 4 sections.
Yeah.
for roles.
Take it out.
Correct.
And by the way, that BPL staff survey kind of talks about the whole partnering with institutions about learning and stuff, though. Again,
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's implementation, right?
again, though, what do you want the library to be? Do you want it to be the focal point kind of the community? And it is the Library of the Commonwealth, and a lot of institutions out there struggling. Is it a mandate as the Library of the Commonwealth to figure out ways to partner and help? Is there ways, I just read an article on the symphony and their library of music, and it's just, all I'm saying is eventually getting there somehow might be interesting, that's all.
I like the idea of it cross-cutting, because there's something about partnering with other institutions for learning. There's definitely something about partnering with other institutions for human services,
Yeah.
right?
Like youth centers aren't gonna work just with us doing them. We need to get that message out to get these kids in, especially at the teen level, and to keep them there. And I don't know, so,
Welcoming destination, I was gonna say, partner, it's not on my mind, but with the MFA, right, to be bringing in some artwork, making it welcoming.
I guess one clarification around the how we live this role. There was some consideration as we were developing the roles with the staff and leader working groups that being able to see what the foundation we currently have that we are building upon. So prior titles for that were what we do today in this area, so that you can celebrate some of the wins that are already speaking towards this role while pushing to the future. I agree for where we are now in the document may or may not be needed, but just wanted to provide some of that context. I think,
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I get that you have to do a current state analysis to kind of get to where you need to get, right?
yeah,
Totally get it. But we're talking strategic plan now.
Yep.
So yes, that was information that was needed for a purpose of context and this exercise. But from a process of presenting a strategic plan, you may use that list as part of your what I'm saying, it's kind of out of place. I'm not saying get rid of it or completely. I'm saying it's out of place. It needs to be in your implementation plan, because these are the organizations that you currently partner with, and it's not an inclusive list, right? That's all we're saying. It's sort of out of place.
okay. So coming back to goals. Yes, I'll just toggle to the second page as well. Obviously.
Can I make a comment on this one?
Of course.
On the top, on the preserve and make accessible our heritage and history, it's not limited to the Commonwealth, right? Because we get access requests globally.
We get tourists all the time, certainly.
I mean, is that something you want? You could say the Commonwealth and global?
or our local heritage and our local, yeah.
Well, it's our priority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is local.
It's local,
Because that's
okay.
where our taxes.
Got it,
Right.
okay.
But we don't turn people away,
Yeah.
like to charge them, but.
No, the reason I say it is because we do get requests for global requests, right? And there's digital passes that may be given globally.
No, I mean, I do think in our more casual references, it's always Boston, Commonwealth and beyond.
Yep.
Like it's always a.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Can we just say that here?
And do we want to add that?
So that's what I'm saying.
Commonwealth and beyond.
I know that's something that,
I don't
We
think
do.
it, I don't think it hurts at all, and it makes it a little more ambitious. It's, I think that's fun.
But I do think as a strategic plan, and I agree with it being easy to add, at the end of the day, the library in the Commonwealth is being funded to that mission. So I think strategically, I get, hey, let's do this and let's do that. And I get the global piece, but that's a nice thing to do when you can. At the end of the day, it's to service the people that are here.
I mean, that's fine. That's the reason I bring it up is because it's something we do today.
Yeah, it's the whole reciprocity of libraries.
Yes.
Right.
It's an interchange wherever they are, but our focus, our priority is on the people of Boston and the Commonwealth.
Slight disconnect, and where I'm going with this is, I felt like this fourth one was meant to embody the research aspect along with the heritage piece, and there's slightly different concepts, e.g. research doesn't have to be just about the past, right? I mean, research is what's happening right now. I don't know whether there's a way to, elevate the concept of research into the actual goal. And I note that 3 out of the 4 use the word research and are around that. The third one down on the left-hand column does speak to the past and preserving stories for the future. But I don't see like a spot that sort of supports the other bullets.
So something like connect communities to the past, to today, and preserve to the present.
Yeah, I've every time I see this time-bound thing, I keep adding the third missing thing, and sometimes it happens and sometimes, because I think it is about understanding, it is about connecting to the past, understanding our current and
Yeah.
preparing for the future.
So that last sentence.
It doesn't roll off the tongue in every particular context, so it's challenging, but I don't think we should lose that.
Because right now it's sort of implying that you're preserving the past forever.
Yeah.
Versus continuing to capture those stories into the future.
Yeah, but the issue that I have is limited to heritage and history. And it's so much more than that. Like, we have the business library, we have, you could be searching for other things that it's not necessarily heritage and history.
If people are doing research for science, presumably,
Right.
at the library, right? And it's not necessarily captured in the goal, it may be captured in some of the sub-bullets.
How do I start my small business?
I think it's partially
But are you
reflected in that
immigration?
third column, right? Lifelong growth.
So again, the third,
I think David was making the point that research,
I see.
general research that's not necessarily history related is in that column, but I don't have an objection at all to making 4 broader either. I mean, 3 is almost like it's almost like instrumental learning. Like, how do you learn skills to help you do things that you're not able to do currently? And 4 is it's less instrumental, just kind of learning and researching for the sake of knowledge. So I think Ray's point is probably worth reflecting here and making 4 less of just. I mean, history is fine to include, but it should probably be broader than that.
But if you look at the content, it's only the title of that role. Because everything else is fine.
That's fair.
The only challenge you have with any strategic plan, that I stated the obvious, is trying to get so much that you're, and I get what you're saying, we got the business, we got the science, we got music, we got film, we have everything. I mean, the students, every time I come in here, I run into someone from Pratt, that's looking at our, I don't know. I think that to me is, I don't know how you do it, but if we keep on trying to, you want a strategic plan that you can really carry out and hit, and I'm just nervous that and I've done it already twice, so don't get me wrong, but kind of adding on more, it gets more challenging as a strategic plan, and then it's kind of becomes a little bit more unwieldy to execute on it, that's all.
if it's too wide.
The net's too wide.
I do think it's an important point though, because we are talking so much nowadays about democratizing research. And that means, what does research mean to people? And it doesn't necessarily mean researching the past.
100%.
It could mean finding a job. I mean, research is what people are doing.
Researching current events.
Right, which I hope people are doing right now.
Yeah, but all the bullets,
Right, all the
all the
bullets reflect that.
below
It's just.
say that.
So it's just trying to incorporate in that statement.
Right, that,
Something about.
Task is rework the title. of
Right.
the
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Exactly.
that's it, got it.
I'm gonna slightly wordsmith the last bullet under number 4. Build and promote collections that represent the diversity of our communities of users with an emphasis on the historically underrepresented voices, et cetera. Do we want to say that we're emphasizing historically underrepresented or including? To me, emphasizes that too much. I mean, it's everybody, not just historically underrepresented.
Okay, Joe, I'm gonna be the person who's gonna speak up on that. I think it's important that the word emphasis is there.
It's actually what we are actually doing with our whole community.
Because it's, you need to have, in a climate that is highly charged, I think creating that emphasis on I think from a strategic perspective, just raises the bar that to have a little bit more of a critical eye to that community.
But when I read the word emphasis, that to me says that you are elevating it above other groups that maybe are not historically marginalized.
I think we're emphasizing the gaps that may have occurred over history and trying to remedy those.
I think that's a good explanation.
Is there a word that accomplishes what you want or what you're understanding that to be without using the word emphasis?
Well, I'm gonna suggest that for you to tell me a word that I can react to. Because I'm fine with the word emphasis.
Yeah, how about community of users, including on the historically underrepresented? I don't know if that's grammatical, but you know, just because we're calling it out specifically, that, or do you prefer
I
emphasis?
don't know, it's kind of bluff.
And it's an emphasis, so it's not the only emphasis, if you want to split that here.
With a continuing focus. Is that tone it down? Is that emphasize?
Why are we trying to tone it down?
I know, I think this is actually, we've made a conscious decision to.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
Yeah. I mean, and its emphasis doesn't mean we're not doing the other stuff.
I wanna know
But we are
why we're
uplifting.
toning it down.
We are uplifting these
I'm
stories.
sorry, but why would you want to tone it down?
I'm not trying to tone it down, I don't think that's the right way of saying it, it's just, when I read this, it seems to me that we're sort of calling it out and prioritizing over
Yeah.
other voices, and if we are, that's, okay, then
I think
that's accurate.
because also the lived experiences of our city and region, that's also a deliberate focus for us to focus on.
Well, this is a bigger question that goes into mind when we talked about this in our last meeting was the city has dramatically changed and it's going to constantly change and it's always changed. It's last 400 years, it's gone through its changes. And I guess that's kind of what I'm hearing here is that we, as a library, and if it's truly vision, need to adapt and need to look at what's important, not just books from 200 years ago, but how do you get it updated to be more in tune to the way these neighborhoods and libraries have now changed. And to me, that's like, you know, Dennis Lehane coming out of Adams Street, Dorchester. That's, next guy's not gonna be named Dennis Lehane. Okay, next girl, next guy, next person's not gonna be. So it's I guess it's becoming, it's an emphasis on these newer communities coming in or that are here that have been underrepresented by the libraries. That's the way I'm with you. So I guess it's figuring that out.
The reason why I think
Sorry, Dennis, I hope you're not listening.
Where I think it works is any goal or plan is meant to, again, I like the idea of we're doing things that are addressing the context, the environment, right? And if you sort of think about it, call it out, right? This is, again, right? And there's probably plenty, can you rewind again, just so I have the right wording? There is probably plenty of promotion of collections from the history of Beacon Hill, right? Just because there is, right? But we have gaps in sort of to your point, in the population of Dorchester.
Like, I'll just give one Boston history, and anybody that's from the city will understand this. If you ask anybody over the age of 50 what parish they were from in Dorchester, they'll tell you. Yeah, if anybody under the age of pretty much 40 now, they have no idea. So if parishes have changed that dramatically in our city, where you were known by what parish you came from in Dorchester, however, our library has not changed. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to say here, is that the city's going through and it always goes through this change. How do we continue to adapt to that? And I think that's a great example, because I don't know if any of you have been to Dorchester, but if you ask anybody what parish they're from, most of them, anybody young has no clue at all, and that's not important anymore. It is to a previous history, previous generation, but not going forward. So how do we balance off those two? And then how do you create this kind of opportunity for people to learn? That's all.
So what,
We've,
let me put a pin on this and just say, if that was a deliberate decision as part of the strategic plan, I'm fine with it. That's what the strategic plan's goal is. I was looking at it more as a question of language, and was it accurately reflecting what we wanted to do in the strategic plan? If it is, then we'll keep it.
Yeah.
One down, 3 to go.
Yep. Of the 45 minutes on goals, we are 25 minutes in on roll 2, but again, we're happy to expand. So the 4 that are within welcome to destination, just because it's a little bit easier to see all 4, and then we'll look at the initiatives. So at a high level, creating inclusive spaces, reimagining McKim, embracing cultural diversity, that's expanding in multiple languages, and building sustainable communities. So the first page includes the first 3, and then the sustainability ones are on the 4th.
I think we're in our rhythm though. People know, right? We're focusing on those top and then looking at the initiatives and see what it's.
And similar to the prior comments, I think completely makes sense. The boxes served a purpose in the prior draft. They don't feel as, now that the emphasis is on the goals, that those are no longer needed. But keeping the same order of the initiatives. I don't know, agree, disagree?
Yeah. Getting rid of the numbers.
And getting rid of the numbers,
top.
yes. Yeah. They're helpful for me taking notes right now, but they will not be in the next draft.
I'd like to reserve the right to suggest that maybe something as significant as the McKim initiative gets a special recognition, especially if we're losing these boxes. But
Can I, from aesthetics perspective,
We met McKim.
well, you're doing it because you're putting it in
It's
bold,
its own,
okay?
Yeah.
And it's its own bullet, right? Okay. From an aesthetics perspective,
Hey, we could get rid of the people.
instead of repeating key initiatives 3 times, that box, you can move it around key initiatives and just elongate it across the 3 columns, just saying aesthetically. You can do whatever you want, just making a suggestion.
Yep.
Cut out the photo of the people, put McKim building there.
yeah, I mean, I think this is headed in the right direction. I think we could still think a little bit about making some of these more tangible. I like the idea of inclusive spaces, but I think part of that concept, as we discussed previously separately, is the idea of a third space in the library as a connector, weaving neighborhoods and communities together. And I guess some of that is coming out of the concept of fostering a sense of belonging and all that, but some of the language still feels a little bit abstract to me. Likewise, I think we had some more ambitious language about McKim that we shared previously. So I don't know that we need to wordsmith But I still think that some of these concepts can be a bit more tangible and a bit more ambitious.
I agree.
And I think number 3, if you're gonna move them around, I would have that as your first. Like, we just had this conversation on the city changing, and our state changing, which is a good thing, it always has been. And to me, number 3 is probably one of the most important things that we could ever do, to keep libraries functional, keep libraries engaged, and keep libraries on the forefront of changing. So that's, I feel like it's, as a third one, it's kind of almost an after.
But is it described in the right way? I mean, embrace cultural diversity suggests that we don't currently embrace cultural diversity as a goal. Is the idea more to
Yeah, maybe.
like help make new neighbors feel welcome and part of the community? I don't mean to wordsmith, but by having something stated as a goal, it suggests that we're not currently.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that. I think a lot of the stuff I don't read this as saying, oh, we're not doing it now and we need to totally change and do a 180 and do it in the future. I think it's, some things, yes, but other things are more of a continuation of what we're doing. Maybe we could say continue to embrace, to make it more clear, but.
You guys are very low, and the microphones in front of you are for the Zoom, so they can hear you.
Okay.
But the people are
Oh, sorry. Okay, just a yellow.
Well, I'm saying, I think it's implied.
That's fair.
Is there a way to word that embrace cultural diversity, which I get what you're saying. I think this library's done a really credible job to try to do that and really get better at it. And is there a better way to say that to kind of get to those increased multilingual capabilities, expand services for the new communities coming into the cities? Yeah, I don't know if there's a different term for that. That is,
I go to as a partial response to that.
Yeah.
I go to the initiatives under this column to
Yep.
really grasp this, which is largely about multi-language implementation. Like when you walk into a branch, is the signage in the languages of those neighborhoods? Do our staff have the ability to converse in those languages? Let alone, which is elsewhere, the collections and programs. And then specifically, the third bullet is calling out the more recent arrivals in Boston who will become part of today and tomorrow's communities.
Can I ask about the immigrant communities, expand services for immigrant communities? Don't read that. Michael, to what extent? Because that's a big ball of wax, that's why I'm calling it out. So, to what extent?
Well, I mean, we've already been moving to do more and more support of people who are trying to get citizenship, obtain citizenship through classes, through partnerships with various organizations. We're also talking about like putting in passport, so you can get your passport at the library and things like that. And
So
is it specific?
But I'm gonna get back to it, those are tactics right now. This is strategic initiatives, and so you're hoping to do this. What those services are going to be or what they are is part of a different part of this. So this is just a strategic component. So I get what you're saying, but those are getting down to exactly what are you doing?
Well, that's the reason I bring that up, because citizenship is very narrow, okay? Whereas
Yeah.
residency is wider. So that's what I'm asking, what specifically you're looking to do, because it could be a big ball of wax.
well, we're also working very intentionally for immigrants to get employed and so I think such as providing increase, like those are examples, that's not everything we're doing, we're actually doing a lot more.
Because I'll tell you, legally, citizenship is, I already have my legal resident, and then I'm gonna study to become a citizen.
Yeah.
That's very narrow.
Yeah.
But the things that you just talked about, that is, getting a work permit, doing all these things, that's a lot more.
I like that, yeah.
That's about being,
Being welcome.
transitioning to
Yeah.
resident,
Yeah.
to be an American resident. which is before you, in that, there'll be years before you actually get to citizenship.
Yeah.
Can I toss something out? I'm not sure, but, and I'm not shying away from the term immigrant communities, but I kind of am, expand services for newer communities, like, I just think that we've gotten so, like. it's been-
So what's the difference?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's not, immigrant has, because of what's going on in this country recently, become almost
Co-opted.
Politicized.
Okay, and I don't like that it has, I think it's wrong, but at the same time, is there a better way to word it?
Well, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Because there, so immigrant means I come from a different country,
I know,
right? Oh, I'm helping you.
Yeah.
But, but then what you try, when you say new community,
But you
it
have
could be somebody who's coming from Chicago who's moving into Boston.
Or it could be a child that was born in the country, who's 8 years old, it doesn't feel like an immigrant.
What?
What I'm saying to you is immigrant is a term that no longer has that beauty to it that it once did for the country. And it's not our fault, it's what's going on politically. I'm just saying,
Well-
is there a better way to word it?
Time out, time out. The history in this country,
It's our
immigrants
DNA.
have never had a good term, because we can go back to the towns, we can go back to Irish, go back to a whole host of nationalities and cultures. So the term immigrant really means just a person who has gone from one country to this country. Yeah, and so I think we shouldn't look at it from the lens of how it's been politicized today, because it was politicized when the other immigrants
History of our
came,
country,
right? That's,
correctly.
when they came from Asia, wherever it was. So I think,
Pick every ethnic group.
but going to what you're bringing up, I think the question for me is, how does that connect as an initiative to the welcoming destination, in the sense of, this is big. What Evelyn just unpacked, that is a big bucket. That is a big bucket.
Well, I think the reason why it ended in welcoming destination is because immigrant communities, and I was just gonna say, the city went to New Bostonian, then went back to immigrant advancement.
Okay.
So,
All right.
it's immigrant advancement now. But the reason why that's a welcoming destination is because the reason we're doing this is because the immigrant communities are coming to the library.
Gotcha.
And they come to the library because it's a trusted resource.
These
It's-
services, yeah.
Yes, but that's why we're focusing on it, because they're here and that's what they need.
So widening the language beyond pure citizenship?
So hold on a second,
Yeah.
because what I was gonna say, though, does it belong there? Because when I think about welcoming destination, I'm talking about physical space, right? So what are the attributes of a physical space?
Yeah, it's almost like part of this belongs in trusted resources.
Right.
Or community engager?
Sure.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then this,
Or working with other departments, like groups.
Was it you or you that said it's about when I walk in, I see the languages, but I also hear the voices?
Yeah.
is this space for me?
There you go. That's what I like.
That's where it fits here.
That's what she is.
Like wayfinding,
Yeah.
see
Yeah,
things in different
yeah.
languages.
So that's.
So I wouldn't move that so to a community engager or trusted resource.
Yeah.
It was, in the prior version, it wasn't in pager? Yeah.
I think what Jose is,
No issue there.
what
I think
thought
he's
was saying
agreeing
was
with me.
was keeping it here, because it is a
Are you
physical
saying-
space. You walk in and you see different languages, right?
No. Yes, but what I'm saying, that last bullet.
Guys,
I'm talking about moving the last
I
bullet.
know, but when we adopted Winthrop School years ago with Mayor Medina, there were 15 different languages spoken in that school at that time. And it started to be called an immigrant school, and a lot of the parents got very upset with that, no matter what language you were speaking. What I'm saying to you is, you're gonna have signs for every single different cultural group that comes in there. It's an impossibility. I'm just trying to tell you, and being on the board of Boston Medical Center, we went through this at the emergency room. What do we have, 35 different translators? Do things that are realistic, do things that we can accomplish. And I would say that expanding services for immigrant communities, like then make that, we're getting into the tactics of it. We're gonna have signs up. That's not a strategic initiative, that's a sign. And what language is gonna be more important? What's gonna be the new language 10 years from now?
But it will continue to change, and the rule of thumb has
Okay, but
been.
what language is it gonna have in the door welcoming people?
We take our lead from the 10 most spoken languages in the Boston Public Schools. We don't try and have 187. If we happen to have either collections or staff in others, that's great, but our sense of welcome is conveyed by having more than one or two languages.
100%. I'm with you completely. If you have 10, then great. If there's a number and you've got that fixed, and this is the first time I'm hearing this, so it's really important. I'm saying, let's make sure that we're able to attain some of the things we're gonna ask for, that's all.
I do agree that not to be pushing the thing down the road, but at implementation, we have to be very careful about what is attainable versus what is not.
So I want to come back to, I can't remember who said it, about that last bullet, about the services for immigrant communities being moved out of this section of welcoming destination to trusted resource or community engager, someplace where it's more service-based as opposed to physical location-based. So you can keep the language is fine. I'm totally fine with immigrant communities because I think that's how people understand it. But I don't know that it really belongs here because it's not just coming to I assume we have services that people can get online too. They don't think of that. So anyway, that would be my one suggestion. And I also, just on this side of the floor, Christian made a reference to that third, quote unquote, third space, which I think is kind of important. And it's sort of, I don't know if it's kind of jargony, so I don't know that we necessarily want to use it, but I'd love to convey somewhere, maybe in the first line, in the first column, about inclusive spaces, a space, not home, not work,
Yeah.
but that space.
I mean, we
where
did
you
try to
feel
do that.
welcome.
I agree it is jargon, Joe, but to me that is important. And
Yeah, but how do you say it?
We had previously said things like attract new patrons by developing new services and offerings that appeal to people eager to build a deeper sense of community and belonging. Concepts like that. We had also heard in the strategic planning committee a real desire to try to make better and more exciting use of public spaces like the Newsfeed Cafe, for example. And we had, some of that is reflected here, but rather than just being a public forum, we had talked previously about making the DPL the public forum for the city of Boston, reimagining libraries, public spaces with ambitious expanded programming that encompasses world-class lectures, debates, and concerts. So, I mean, maybe that's too ambitious, I don't know, but I do think that trying to make these concepts, a little bit more tangible and a little bit more exciting, at least to this slide, would be good.
I'm gonna try to stop adding in my 2 cents. Number three is probably the most important thing this library is gonna do for its future. And McKim is building, and I get it, we wanna save it, we wanna renovate it, we wanna do history, we wanna do research. If we want libraries to be in the forefront of learning and knowledge, we're gonna have to figure out number 3. Not the citizenship piece of it, that's gonna be one part of it, but it's figuring out how we have this strategy in mind to constantly be on the forefront of being culturally aware of the neighborhoods and the vibrant changes that are going on. And how do we help these communities get more active and more engaged, more involved in the city, in the state, in the country, in the world they live in. That to me is strategic. That to me is one of the most important things this institution can do to be relevant 100 years from now.
Maybe all of number 3, that third column should be under community engager.
So just keep in mind, community engager is outside of the building.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and it is sort of outside.
But that's talking about stuff inside.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think?
I mean, I think if you move that, I mean, the problem is it serves both. I mean, you can put it legitimately in any of those 3 areas.
But if we're thinking, I think part of the reason it ended up here, and to give some of the history, it was born in community engager. It made its way up to welcoming destination, and it was some thinking around it coming to the front door and feeling welcome, being seen, belonging, an inclusive space, that embraces the diversity of the community and the multi-language options. It felt like there was a synergy between some of those goals as part of the reason it ended up in this section.
So, maybe a little to that point, I wonder whether multilingual is too narrowed. And, you know, there's an idea around embracing cultural diversity that's not just based on language, right? And so, I'll use some example, like, just off the top of my head, you know, if you're in Dorchester, you're at that branch and you're Vietnamese, when you want to walk in, it's not just about the different languages, it's maybe the decorations, maybe it's the holiday, right? It's there that you're capturing.
Yeah, one
Suggestion, maybe taking out multiple languages as the goal piece.
Now, one potential section, suggestion, potentially, this one, as far as belonging goes, there could be a reality where these two initiatives are actually included in this piece and that goal goes away.
Exactly, yep.
Especially if this one's gonna end up in trusted resource and feature, right? So like, kind of these two come here and it becomes one of the double wides.
I did too, I did.
Yeah,
So we go down to 3 instead of 4?
Right.
exactly, yeah.
I wanna, and I'll email it for consideration, doesn't need to be decided here, so for the interest of time. That bullet about expand services for immigrant communities, I'm still having a little.
I think we can widen the language.
Better
Yeah.
wording, I'll send you something.
Okay. As a non-citizen resident, I'm also happy
Say
to
it.
comment on that. As a non-citizen resident myself, I'm happy to make that language more inclusive.
Okay, so I'll send you something, so you
Yeah.
guys can react to it, so you can revise it.
I definitely, I feel seen in
Because
that comment.
I want something around, you know, relevant, you know, programs at every stage of their journey, regardless of their immigration status.
Yep.
Because I think having a citizenship support, it's only very specific to a particular group of people. And I know that you all do more than just that.
Sounds good.
So for consideration, just to support Christian's point of view, that third bullet under number 1 can be, is there an opportunity to be actually put a stake in the ground and be more ambitious? And I think the wording, Christian, was like I think the key wording is making the BPL locations the center of civic engagement discourse. And so you're sort of putting a question, you know, I'm not saying we should, but can you think of other institutions that would compete with us or are as well positioned to be that public forum at Roman Town Hall? And wouldn't it be great if like we were the place in the city where people came for this?
Yep.
Just say that it's
Okay.
Keep going. Thank you.
And I'm gonna reply to it.
Yeah, I definitely be supportive of that, and I think that's consistent with what we heard from other stakeholders in the strategic planning committee. We have such amazing public spaces, and it seems like more could be done to animate them, and that was the idea. Another theme that came through, I think some of the earlier initiatives and some of the strategic planning committee was the concept of making the special collections just more accessible. And I don't know whether that's meant to be captured in the Reimagine McKim or not, but the idea I think was to use the treasures of the library in a way that animates the animation and the imagination and brings people a sense of the city's diversity and contribution. So I see some of that got in here, and maybe it's a matter of just making clear that the BPL's vast collections includes special collections. But I think the critique was that the current special collections area, although beautiful and a treasure library in itself, is not very easy to access. And so if you want to see something that is an amazing treasure library, you really have to take a lot of effort to do it. You can't serendipitously stumble upon it in a secure setting in a way that would inspire you. So,
Where would you put that?
well, I think it's probably just like adding a couple words to the first bullet point under Reimagine McKim potentially.
Yeah,
The concept again was democratizing access to the special collection, right?
Correct. That's the idea.
Right.
I think it's also part of the fourth section of lifelong learning and research partner. I think it's spread.
But I don't think we call it out.
The democratized access?
The special collections specifically.
Yeah, I think that the language is widened to be more inclusive of all research, potentially either by updating the McKim specifically or bringing incorporate that in.
I think, you know, I would like to see the special collections elevated here as far as public access goes. We obviously do a lot of it digitally, but to actually see the physical object is really important. And that might be,
I mean, you could just add the special collections reading room to that list under conduct a user-focused process. Because that calls it out specifically.
Yeah. You're talking about the IE studios.
Yeah.
the comic spaces,
yeah, but that's such a, I mean, there's so many words in that I'm afraid if you added special collections, it's just gonna get lost in the salad.
I mean, I think where I'd envisioned it was where the first bullet point that refers to executing McCann in a way that excites the public's imagination, showcases EPL's vast collections. I mean, I suppose you could say including special collections that are in programs and highlights Boston's diversity and contributions to the world. That could be one place to put it.
But it's not just, I mean, one of the things that I've always thought about is not just, you know, sort of democratizing the access, and obviously it's hard to get to that special collections room, but once you get there, it's great, but also, you know, more ability to sort of publicly display exhibitions of some of the things like we did with the Shakespeare many years ago. So as we reimagine McCann, is there a public exhibition space?
Absolutely.
To have in there?
Yeah, that's, that, I mean, I agree with that strongly, and we have language that went to that. And so, you know, we can talk further about it offline, Aaron, but to me, that is something we should try to capture if we can.
Yeah. Is it a fourth or fifth bullet under reimagine McCann? Or is that calling it out too much?
I honestly, in my head, it's more about implementation again, about it's the type of renovation we will do to McKim that will enable those, but I don't want to lose the importance.
Yeah, I guess it sounds a little bit like, is it really just about implementation and tactics? The question of whether McCann is going to be, what is it fundamentally going to be used for? Like, do you imagine having a large public exhibition space like in New York? Or
Do I imagine it?
Does one,
Yeah.
does one or does one not? Like that seems like a pretty important strategic question.
Yeah,
Not just
yeah.
like, simple tactics.
I mean, I think when we say showcases BPL's vast collections,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Exhibition.
Well, maybe what we do at this point, again, wordsmithing is vast collections, including its special collections. And just to
It's
call
all
it
of
out.
our collections, but yeah, so.
I mean, so, and maybe we should take this under advisement for editing.
Okay.
So maybe 2 out of the 4 done.
If we're okay with
That was the easy one, so I don't know. Moving on, trust the resource. Folks are comfortable, and everyone should feel free to grab dinner, certainly. As we talk, make this a worth dinner.
It's the one that fits on one page.
Yes. It does fit in one page.
There's many small. So this is the one that fits on one page.
But we are going to add the
Yes.
citizenship, non-citizenship,
We'll find a
immigrant
home.
communities.
So the three currently living in trusted resource, leading with being a reliable source of information, the pursuit of truth and knowledge, bridging with human services, and ties to City of Boston, again, I'm paraphrasing here, and then empowering digital access, which there are digital goals within Community Engager, but this is really about the enabling access for people that aren't currently accessing those.
I thought this was personally, I thought this was one place where the new language really was a big improvement to this. It resonate with me, but we should jump in.
Truth, social work, and digital access.
And those words champion, unprecedented, pioneering.
When we get to the resources section.
Did we lose Ray?
It's not a restaurant.
Yes.
Okay, 5-minute break.
Yeah, grab food, continue.
Probably a good call.
So where did we leave the part about the library becoming the city's, Boston's third space?
So
Go ahead, Aaron.
the subheader for welcoming destination includes the third space language specifically. And then the public forum is reflected in goal 1.
That's kind of like, we're starting to, like, design the building, which seems to me is the other two.
Yeah, this is the language that was in a prior,
Okay.
the highlighted one.
Showcases the treasure. That should. Again.
I would like to see that back in.
We would go under reimagining, this is under reimagining McKinney.
Correct.
Showcases the vast collections and the treasures.
I haven't seen it in a while.
The language does make a difference. Because for me, champion, pioneering. Yep. Show us the world how to do this. That's it. I think I told Christian, it's the library.
They're all different.
Yeah.
And other than this is what Joe and I were thinking.
Which one?
That you can see, this is welcoming programs, including the treasures of the BPL. But others can,
I just want to get it. And that is, remove the numbering from the last one, but welcoming destination goal 2.
yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Like any.
Numbering is helpful for me today, but
Yeah.
all my notes are
It's our reality.
welcoming destination goal 2, initiative 4. John, how is that?
Really good.
Is it?
I like,
I was gonna go for it, so
okay, good.
recommend it?
It's, vegetarian, yeah. It's got artichoke.
I think, yeah, artichokes, eggplant.
Yeah.
How's that pepper initiative? I think it's one.
I think it's pesto. No, it's not that garlic.
Calories.
Sean gets
You
it.
can barely see that they're there.
I guess it's too
I like the
much.
garlic.
Oh, it's so good.
Just to take another look and just be like, are there a couple moments? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been, I was, yeah.
It's just me.
Yeah. No, I think we can look at our welcoming destination as someone who, on a rainy day, forced my brother and sister-in-law to break into the special elections. Because I heard it was available to the public on our tour, and I'm like, okay, we're the public today. It's raining.
What's fun?
Library, she saw Boston
I love that part.
top 10. I'm like, great. We can totally do that, but we also have to run an experiment, and I'd like to see the state elections. And it was circuitous to get, once you got in, it was fantastic.
By the way, I'm in agreement with you on that.
But,
All right?
yeah, like, what if that can be possible?
I think you're right.
Repeater speaking out,
I know.
where like a couple years, we can get you out there.
Well, we have a concern. That's part of the very first thing is the
Yeah.
research.
But adding, including the Trinidad BPL, maybe that'll bring it up, go to that master plan.
Here on the city for the immigration guidance. And I have a species that gets committee, our future is immigration. That's all we have, and that's what differentiates from China or any place else. We have this uniqueness of our countries and our brains working together.
There's a coffee shop we're gonna go to, here on Thunder Road.
Like the pesto sandwich?
Excuse me?
You went with the pesto sandwich as well,
I did.
after John's
I know, I did.
recommendation?
No, but here's the part you missed. I made fun of him for going vegetarian. And then I'm like, okay, so how is that?
That's sort of like. Are you,
But that's yeah, that's sweet. I like that. But she made fun of me on my veggie sandwich.
I know. And then I went for it. I'm telling you.
Come.
Little bit of oil, soluble in vinegar.
Yeah, me too.
It's so funny, you comment about immigrant. I have lived all over the world. As soon as I can prove my address, my first stop is the library. Yeah, that's because I'm Walmart, et cetera, but it makes you feel part of the community. Well, you can find out where you
Go up and in if you want to.
Well, so,
Wanted the conversation.
yeah, depending on the election, well, my marriage returns go up and my green card process ultimately.
Believe me.
But I did just dismantle it.
Yeah.
Whatever happens. That's probably.
Yeah. I also like the huge student population.
Lucy with 6 or 6 minutes.
Even if it's
Okay.
temporary.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, the sugar bomb. You're sitting while you're looking at the comments.
I mean, I wouldn't go here today if I didn't do a summer internship back in 2004. And when I reactivated my library card, they were like, geez. Though, Boston being Irish district, there were apparently 9 Erin Corcoran.
You should.
We were never able to determine which one was
Where are
Corcoran.
you from, what part of Canada?
Near Toronto, yeah, London, Ontario.
My family My father's side of the family is Dutch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some aunts and uncles there, but.
Maybe in the interest of time, got a bite or two.
Right.
Every other year. We'll continue on to the third section, if that's okay. Sorry, I caught you with your.
We will lose John at 6 o'clock, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Jose.
And that may be a good thing.
Did Alex? Alex, he didn't come to Boston at all?
I guess as a time check.
Halloween, but
Say it again?
Oh, no way. Okay, I'm gonna send him an email now.
been having some challenges.
Oh, have he?
And the department.
All right, I'll send him a note.
What would you like?
Tonight, Blanca's showing to go, or
I
actually.
know, she wanted me to go and I'm like, I'm with Jose.
I said, yeah.
She tried many times and I'm like, I'm with Jose.
Okay, thank you. Take it away, add some color. People's feedback, I guess, on this. Wanna talk us through there? Any color to add to this, at all, or?
I think David got it right at the very high level. This is truth, source of truth and information, social work and human services, and enabling people to connect with the digital realm. There's no second page in trusted resource currently.
I really like it. I think these
Yeah.
goals are very action oriented, right? And use that what's word. I say it inspiring. So I think that the verbiage of the goals is perfect. You can hear it in your thoughts.
No, I agree. I have no feedback. It'll look good.
Check.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, this is very, really well done.
So community engager, again, we'll show them as a 4 and then go through the pages. So the strategic goals for community engager. First one is really about a deep understanding of the community. Actually, I will go through on the bigger ones. So looking at what our neighborhoods need with a data-driven programs that are community-centered. So it includes initiatives both for understanding the community and for continuing to co-create with the community. Amplifying diverse voices. This is uncovering and celebrating the untold stories and history of Boston and the Commonwealth. Community history-based offerings. This is also about capturing that present and maintaining for the future, but I do think the language belongs in both places. 3 is around civic participation, civic engagements, looking at best practices from other library systems and nourishing civic literacy and education. And then the final one is the other half of the digital goals. This is really expanding as a library without walls, enhancing the digital experience. So looking at how do people connect, what's the user experience for how they connect to our digital services, but also continuing to widen our electronic resources, digital channels, and getting the word out that those channels exist.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
If you go back. I'm sorry, this is my ESL outside. I'm just reacting to that. On the first one, where it says revolutionize how we serve, engage, and evolve with our neighborhoods, prioritizing community-centered, data-driven programs, and services. Can I ask a question? Because I always have like this adverse reaction to data-driven. Because I can see people just doing analytics and looking at numbers and not really numbers only tell a story, but never tells you a full story. And I'm just reacting to that. So I'll be the first one to say that I'm biased.
Yeah, data informed.
But data also includes impacts. So
Yes.
more than just numbers.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I qualified my aversion to it. So, it's, and you don't need to change the language. Again, it's Evelyn and her ESL. What you're trying to say is that data is one of the factors as part of the evaluation, right? It's not that it's community centered based on data, right?
Right.
That's not what we're saying.
No, it's community centered and it's data informed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
I
just
do want
wanna-
to actually edit this one.
Yeah.
So.
okay, so all right, so,
And I think data informed means that it's not the be all end all, that if the data doesn't say we don't do it.
There are some of our staff who will, when they see this, will have the same,
Reaction.
an equivalent reaction to the one
okay,
you're having.
all right, because I just have these jerk reactions when it's only data driven and because it's data only tells you part of the story. Okay.
That's the point. I guess a couple reactions to this. I like the idea of civic participation and civic engagement. It does seem like item 3 is a little bit half-baked at this point.
What do you say?
This,
I just think item 3 is not really fully complete yet. It seems a little skinny, and I don't exactly know what it means either. Like what does it mean to launch an innovative civic engagement program?
I did add an additional one this morning. I haven't made it there yet.
Fair enough, I haven't seen it yet, but I think the idea is, I think what we mean by civic engagement is bringing people together to share different perspectives and listen to each other and think about what it means to be a citizen and contribute to the city and the state and the country. So I would just suggest that we try to continue building out what is now column 3 more. And then on expand digital reach, I like some of these, and maybe this was deliberate. There could be, we could potentially think a little bit bigger. So key initiative, what is the first one? Create a more user-centric digital experience through enhanced website navigation and updating to the BPL Go app. That makes sense, but I think what we talked about and what we heard from the committee was wouldn't it be nice if there was some tool that you could use, like a app that would allow you to distill the BPL's programming in a way that's tailored to you and would reflect what you were interested in or might be interested in. We had some language like that previously, so consider whether we want to make that a little bit more specific. And then
I think just to make sure I'm capturing that one, we had included the wording to be responsive to individual preferences and needs. We can add some more specificity to that. Is it around having a tailored landing page? Is it?
I guess
Yeah.
partially just to like, the key point was tied to the fact that there's so much programming here. There's so much great work that's being done, but people have trouble sifting through all of that. So it's the point of the tool is to simplify and distill and help you understand what might be of specific relevance to you. So I hear you, Aaron, that last line kind of gets at that, but it was more directly, I think, meant to address the problem of just having tons of programming that's almost overwhelming for people.
So part of the work we've been doing is there is it's part of our website, it's called personalized promotion. So if you do a search on something, then related programming will pop up for you as well. So kind of, if you're interested in, I don't know, finding a dog, to adopt a dog, if you're doing the search, then they'll, like if we're doing a program about that, it'll pop up in your search. So I mean, I think maybe the explicitness of mentioning VPL to Go kind of curtails, because it's about how do we provide that.
Yeah, that's helpful, Michael, but I think for most people, or for many people, we may not yet know
No, I wouldn't use that term.
what BPL to go is, or so maybe at the end, just say, as a way of highlighting a distilling program that, that matters to each individual or something like that. And it's like, it's as simple as that. And then, another point that we had talked about here, maybe this is contentious, was as part of pushing the library out, is there a way that we could allow people who are in other parts of the city to access QR codes that would let them pull resources from the library specific to that place. And maybe that's partially what you're trying to get at here in certain ways, but seems like that's at least something worth discussing and maybe making a bit more specific if we think it's worth pursuing.
Can we, on that bullet, on that user-centric digital experience, can you not just call BPL to go? Because today may be BPL to go, but in 3 years it may be something else.
Yeah.
Just call it mobile experience.
Yeah.
Website and mobile,
I think that got in there because that's actually what they're doing. They're
Yeah,
working-
yeah, yeah.
They want to totally transform.
But making it a little more timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I do think this bullet is supposed to do exactly what Kristen's suggesting it needs to say, but if he's not reading it that way, then
Yeah.
work on the language.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, on civic engagement is a whole emerging field within public libraries, which is geared to everything from being a polling place to voter registration through to participating in the full civic life of your city. So I can write you a whole dissertation for this, Colin, if you want.
Did you want to speak to the initiative being added as well?
Oh, I had suggested we add expand relationships and participate in programs with library peers throughout the country that defend democracy through civic education and literacy, because we've just started to do that with our Brooklyn Public Library.
To the partnership aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometime, Michael, what would be worthwhile, sorry to do this, but the challenges of partnerships, what are the groups that seem to want to and then others don't? Are librarians, kind of protective of their own space? I don't know, not tonight, but that would be a really, because I know we talk about it like it makes it sound so easy, but it's kind of,
Everybody wants to
that would be a
find them.
worthwhile subject sometime, I think that.
Why is it that doing something in partnership with another organization is twice as much work as everyone believes?
Should be half as
But
many.
It should be half as much, yeah. But I do think, when you add people to an equation, it's actually, it's not a sum, it's a multiplier. So I think the complexity is, and that shows up in partnerships. And some people clearly mean, I want to partner with the library. No, that means you want to rent our space. That doesn't mean you actually wanted to partner.
Yeah.
That would be, that might be worthwhile for us to have a better understanding going forward of that, what that, when we say costs are, understand it, so thank you, if you could do that.
Sorry, I maybe missed it. Are we saying there should be a fifth goal, maybe around partnership, which?
I think it was more, where does that show up in
Yeah.
the document?
Or where-
Mhm.
Or should it be unimportant, like, is a library in a position to really kind of drive, like a different level of partnership in the city? Whether it's through, citizenship services or immigration services or through research services, digital, I don't know, is there?
I thought what we talked about earlier
We did, but
maybe putting it into the organizational readiness section, but it could probably go in multiple.
And it could probably also be mentioned in the implementation, because we can only do some things by partnering in the implementation section. So.
I guess, any other comments related to goals?
Can you just remind me again, the flip side of number 4 of digital here and how it's distinct from digital number 3 of trusted resource again?
So, and originally they lived side by side in community engagers. So one is the trusted resource end, which is for those who are not currently digitally literate. How do we get people online, enable them with the tools that they need, which seem to be more of a resource, versus the expanding out beyond the walls, which is more digitization, improving the UX for people that are already, they're connected in a way, but this is more about digitization.
Got it. Got it.
Where was, maybe one of the things that I mentioned was meant to be captured in response to neighborhood needs. Initiative 1, develop an approach for multi-channel methods to meet people where they are in unexpected and exciting ways, such as pop-up locations and mobile outreach. Is that kind of what we're talking about? But I guess what I was thinking is, are there ways that we could have people serendipitously discover the library outside the library, whether it's through QR codes or pop-up installations at the airport or wherever? Is that,
I think it fits
where
in
that
that
falls?
mold. Yeah, that's what I would see it. It's the multi-channel creative right, that allows for tactics underneath there. That could be the QR code, it could be calls out and pop up.
Yeah, I mean, BPL by bike goes to farmers markets and schools and street closures and everything. So that's a very, well, I'm sorry, I'm down in the weeds of implementation in some ways, but I think ensuring that there is a community engager initiative that allows for that to be possible and equally allows for, other ways of accessing services.
I think where some of that language came up was just in this, this initiative here. It's a little more, where can we have those targeted moments, increasing accessibility throughout the city and beyond. That's not specifically within a bus station or on a billboard, but looking at opportunities for how do we get the word out of this vast digital collection.
And I think, to your point, Christian, the mobile outreach speaks to the QR codes, the pop-up locations, speak to airport kiosks, or I think we tried to get it in there without specifically saying what it would be, how we would do it.
A bit of maybe wordsmithing, which I said we wouldn't do, but the respond to neighborhood needs, understand that's not the actual goal, but it feels reactive. I really like the revolutionize down there.
Sorry, Rick?
The respond to neighborhood needs, the number one
Got it.
goal.
So go slide -1. Yeah. I think all the others, it had much more active verbs there, right? Transform, the phrase I was thinking, transform how we engage with neighborhood needs or something like that. Consideration.
Sorry, I lost the plot for a minute. Which one?
Respond.
Number 1.
Respond.
The word respond is an act.
Header.
Okay.
Like the goal looks great, plus.
Oh, the top header. I was looking at the goal text, but I couldn't find it. Thank you.
Reactive.
Could I ask a question on number 2? The last bullet number 1, 2, 3, 4, nourish civic literacy. When I come to the next page under foster civic.
Oh, it is a
participation.
repeat. Thank you. This one.
So was it meant to be under foster civic participation and not by diverse voices?
I think it was meant to be here. Thank you for,
To be under 3, right?
yeah. Yeah, let me just make sure I get that one too.
And just as a point of understanding, when we say become better citizens, what do we mean?
More informed?
Participatory. It's like the word better is a bit,
Yeah.
pejorative.
But could we not be, instead of using the word engagement up there, so it become engaged citizens?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
In the sense that what we're looking to do is engage our citizens to engage in their
I'm so
civic
glad that you came
responsibility.
up with the word because I was gonna say something very inappropriate. So that's why I'm like sitting here going like,
I'm just saying.
I think engaged is.
engage is good.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay, so we can still like wordsmith that a little.
Yeah. Yeah, what is better? And thank you for finding the duplicate.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Much appreciated. Most likely because I called some things that's in the last version.
You know, that one, that foster civic participation, even though it's got research, best practice engagement, I mean, wow. Just a quick anecdote to put this in context. The first major campaign I worked on was Governor Dukakis' presidential campaign. I visited Iowa with him, and I met with community members in Des Moines, Iowa. They could not tell me the difference between a dog catcher, city councilor, state rep, and the president as far as who is responsible for the politics, which blew me away. I said, time out, I'm in a different zone of life because you can't tell me the difference between one and the other. Do you not know federal, state? They did. Which begs the question then when we put foster civic participation, literacy with regard to just civics, right?
Yeah.
So I only raise that only because under foster civic participation, we have 2 bullets, but I think there's probably more that we can unpack if we spend more time on that.
Yeah, I think that's what Kristen was saying, right?
It's make it much more.
I think Michael's starting to do it, but I agree, we need to spend,
Because they're not teaching it in the schools, right?
No.
So.
no.
That's what I hear anecdotally, I don't know if that's true.
Sure. So we have an illiterate populace who really doesn't understand all these things.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I don't know how we put this in here as we've been going through this. How do we amplify 21st century skills and knowledge in all this?
21st century what?
Skills and knowledge in what all of these things that we're trying to do. I'm looking at Michael.
Well, it should show up in lifelong learning, but
I think there was some debate over that exact terminology.
Okay.
I think as far as, is it not already the 21st century, I think was some of the debate. Within Lifelong Learning Partner, I think the decision was made to look at that true idea of lifelong learning from from children and families to youth to adults and beyond, beyond adults. Long day. But in prior versions, we had the 21st century literacies or different pieces, but that language.
it's just, we're already in, it's gonna be 2025, 2030.
Yeah,
well,
but that enabling for.
Whatever century,
Yeah.
right, what century future is Drake. But the skills and knowledge we need today and for the future.
Yeah.
Whether that's academic achievement, personal achievement.
Right.
I don't know if that's part of our role, but I'm
I
just
do
thinking this is
think-
the place I would come to.
Yes, I
That's what they are.
think there's a place within this foster civic participation
That's why I raised
that
it.
is exactly that. It is, what are all of the literacies one needs to fully participate in this democracy?
Okay, so can I help? Because when you say to anybody what's 21st century skills, everybody, you will get 100 answers, right? So good thing I have 21st century learning from Boston Latin School when we did this strategic plan. So I think all the components with it, without calling it 21st century, I think they're getting called out in different places. Unless you disagree.
I'm not disagreeing, I just want to make sure that we had it someplace embedded on.
Because it has life and career skills, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity, information, media technology skills. That's pretty much civic literacy.
History.
Sounds like a liberal arts background.
But also distributed to a lot of the goals and a lot of the initiatives that we're speaking to, right? Like, I think.
Well, in trusted resource, there are 2 specifically that mention civic literacy, so there is definitely a crossover between those 2 goals. Because we talk about media literacy and critical thinking, and we also talk about establishing a civic literacy program to help individuals become more informed citizens, and that's in trusted resource. Those could also be in community
I think
engagement.
this initiative starts to commit us to understanding what this question is. And because we've done bits of it, but haven't done it formally as a program, I know I was reluctant to list the 10 things we could do because we haven't done them yet, and we haven't researched what the best practices are. So, maybe that's my own sort of tension between, wanting to declare what the right next step is without committing us to an entire program. I don't want to commit us to an entire program until we've decided that we're doing it and what it is and what resources it will take. But then there's this tension between attainability and aspirationalness in the plan. So I wonder if the implementation phase again doesn't flesh out what this truly will become.
But the choice to make it a goal signals that it is an area of focus for the future.
I agree.
Versus if we were to take these elements and bury it into other sections of the document, this is a distillation that this is a goal that we wish to play.
Whereas research we've done for 176 years, so to be able to have many bullets around it, which we. 3 minutes to 6.
So we're talking briefly about the organizational readiness, at least the categories that we might consider.
Sure.
Because I do think that's important. We haven't really discussed it.
Only if we let John go first after you, because he has to leave.
Yeah, please. Or I can share my reactions. So I think currently we have these are the enablers of the plan, right? What we need in order to implement it. And we currently have workplace culture, workplace development, workforce development, resource development, in collaboration and communication.
Yeah.
I think we've heard that partnership is really important, and maybe it goes here, maybe it goes elsewhere, but that seems like one that would be worth considering to include here. I think the communication slash, I know marketing is not the right word, but is that meant to be embedded in? That seems like, to me, that seems like it's important enough to stand on its own. In other words, if we don't communicate the plan effectively, it's not going to be a success. And so
I'd say some of the wayfinding to communication in particular, there was a period of time where communication was entirely located within the organizational shifts or now organizational readiness. There was a decision to split that the communication that would be in the readiness is a little bit more communicating within the organization and having an understanding of the goals together, whereas the external facing ended up more in the community engager initiatives and goals, both understanding the community, determining how to communicate to the community and increase engagement. So there was a split.
yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of disagree with that in the sense that it looks like under organizational readiness, we have maybe three HR heavy categories, and obviously human resources and staff and the people who make this place work are the number one resource of all. But do we really want to have 3 out of our 5 organizational readiness categories be HR related? Do we not want to consider having strategic partnerships be one, or external communication / marketing, whatever we want to call it, is one? I think again, if this is going to be successful, we need to be able to communicate to the public very clearly and succinctly in an exciting way what we're doing and why it matters. And I think it gets lost if it's not.
Well, similar to that, having the resources to do this, right? I mean, to me, that seems to be, whether we're talking about the BPL fund or resources from public entities like the city and the state. I mean, should that be part of, you can't do this stuff without the money.
That's resource development.
I think resource development has to pick that up to some extent, but I agree with you, Joe.
Is it helpful to do a quick walkthrough through this section?
Except that, again, sort of wordsmithing, resource development, nowhere do we use the, I know it's crass, money, funds. I know we're not supposed to talk about that crass.
Sorry, there's a section.
Yeah, but underneath it, but strengthen our impact by ensuring the BPL's existing funding and efforts to secure, I just feel like that ought to be elevated somewhat.
Bullet number 2 is develop a funding strategy across all vehicles, municipal, state, federal, philanthropic, and in-kind funding to catalyze strategic roles and goals.
If you're, David, if you're comfortable with it being there as opposed to, higher level.
What resources What resources are we developing in this initiative other than funding?
So the previous draft had a bit of a mix where it included a little bit of people resources within this. We have shifted those forward into the prior categories, whether it's EDI as far as community needs. And I think a few of them are rolled up into here around next generation life.
So why don't we take that as a suggested edit? I mean, we can see, because if it was originally something else that's now only funding, then why don't we call it what it is?
Can I make a suggestion though? Because I agree with Christian, but when I think organizational readiness, I think of upstream, downstream. And I don't see it here.
Can you clarify that a little?
So upstream and downstream. So upstream, so it's forces that influence you. So example, government relations, donor relations, those things are kind of upstream, right? Downstream is the community at large that you're serving. So then you look at if you think of an octopus, what are the tentacles that kind of touch upon that? So that's how I think of org readiness. I just think about what is it that, from an organizational perspective, what do I need to do in order to deal with my upstream and my downstream? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Well, the way you explain it, to me, downstream is the plan, because that's the impact we're gonna have, what we're doing to help the people who are downstream from us. And the upstream is the organizational readiness, the stuff that's gonna impact us, to be able to do that.
But you need to manage all those, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. So you need to manage your upstream. So how do you communicate up in order to get what you want? And then how do you manage down? So, and I think down, I don't like that word, downstream. It's like, who are the people we're serving? And then what are the things that as an organization I need to do in order to manage each way, right? Because sometimes they don't meet in the middle, right? So you kind of, does that make sense?
Not the downstream part to me. Can you give an example of something that an organization shifts to address the downstream piece?
I gotta think about this part.
But I think to me, that's.
And I'll think, because I'm with Christian, that it's too human resources focused.
Is there a version for
I don't-
integration? I mean, to me, it's the word, just the wordsmithing, is organizational enablers, right? And I know that may be similar, but readiness implies a bit of reactivity to me. Enablers say, okay, these are the things that will accelerate our ability to execute against what we want to do.
This is the foundation we need to springboard.
Like, what do we as an organization internally need to either get better at or need more of to support all of these 4 roles and initiatives and goals in the community?
Yes, so Michael, let me explain it on a different term. Maybe it's more specific. So for example, we had a org readiness team. Their responsibility was every time the product team, so now software company, for those who don't know, software company, you have a new product, right? And then so product needs to do certain things in order to enable, because I'm going to use Ray's words, enable the support of the product, the marketing of the product, the implementation of the product, the upgrade for the product. So there are all these things that need to happen, right? There's employee training, there is marketing plans, there need to be customer documents. So this group, org readiness, what they made sure is that before we had it released, we would say, is the product maintainable, upgradable, supportable, and implementable? And so that's org readiness. You know, if you're coming up with this, is the organization ready to do all these things? And within that, there's multiple things that need to happen. Employee training, customer information, marketing. So that's more tangible. That's why I say upstream and downstream, because it's different programs that have the impact.
But are these 5 things not that our equivalent of those,
That's what I was saying, because everything you said.
organizational readiness? We need a culture that supports these goals and that has a much more collaborative flavor. The individuals need to know their roles and learn skills for the next roles. They need to do this. We may need more roles, which is the resource development. And then internal communications about what are the goals, what are the roles, what are we doing? That needs to be uplifted to a whole nother level. So I agree with what you just described, but I think this is responsive to that.
But I guess for the record, I do think that it misses some fundamental things like external communications, strategic partnership,
Yeah.
and a more, to Joe's point, just a more development centered and weighted category. So I think these are important pieces of it, but I think there's some really significant things that are missing here.
Yes.
And so, and those are, so just to follow the thread, you're saying, I think, that strategic partnerships are an internal thing as part of cultural
No,
readiness?
they are an enabler of the success of the plan. If we partner with organizations in the right way, we should be able to accomplish certain aspects of the plan. Likewise, if we market or communicate externally with libraries doing it effectively, we're going to reach more people and we're going to bring the resource to the library in a way that helps us deliver on the plan. And finally, if we focus appropriately on development and we are mindful of the current revenue mix and what it needs to be, then of course we're going to have a much better chance of executing the plan. So I just, as Evelyn was saying, I find this much too HR focused. HR is really important, and I won't use the term human capital, Michael, but the people are obviously the most important resource here, but it's a bit myopic, I think, not to have these other major categories.
Does the model support adding things like that are outwardly focused?
I think the question around where does partnership show up, I think is completely valid feedback and potentially rolls into this section. The marketing one, I think I'd love to take a look at sort of, since we split it, did it end up too distributed across community engager that it can't be seen as well? So I think taking a look at that feedback, but if we're viewing these as enablers, I think strategic partners is a key enabler.
What does it have to be called, organization? Why do we have to work the word organizational to just be called enablers? Or these are essentially like the keys to success. How do we make sure that we execute on the plan? Is that what we're talking about here, I think?
Yeah, let's take the feedback and take a look at it. Yeah.
And can I just ask for clarification? When you say development, do you mean financial or do you mean?
Yes.
That's right, that's.
I mean, of course, human development is critical as well, but.
It's well captured in the other 3 buckets we have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I don't want to give up on. I'm okay entertaining the adding, but
So long as
these
that
are-
workplace culture.
These 3 things that are more of the personnel-oriented ones are very different from each other, and I think very critical. But again, so I think entertaining the addition of things that we feel are missing, and sure, why not?
Could you divide up collaboration and communication, right? And then right now there's a little bit of a different concept, but essentially the collaboration there is internal, is my read.
Yeah.
But you can have a whole category around partnership and collaboration, which a sub-bullet is internal, a sub-bullet is external partnerships. Right?
By the way, the communication is here in this context is internal as well.
Exactly, and then so unless, I think maybe it is someplace else, but you can imagine its own communication pillar or enabler that has internal and external there. I just don't know whether it overlaps with the specific initiative.
I think that's the part to check, because we previously had all communications within the enablers, but as community engager emerged as a key role, much of the external marketing, external connections was shifted there. So I just want to
Maybe there's even a footnote or a hook that says.
By the way,
to do
this-
outwardly facing work requires, more internal resource.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but I don't see it though.
It
Because
doesn't-
I don't see
Definitely
it.
doesn't jump out at me.
Doesn't show. So as a placeholder, you could split that up and then internal, external for both communication and collaboration.
In the way that in organizational collaboration and partnership collaboration could potentially also be together in this section.
Yeah, internal, external, under whatever you want to call it, collaboration/partnerships. Internal, external for communication.
Do we want
Now,
to?
Christian, you sort of, not that it's about counting, but you sort of have, basically you have some things which are HR focused and you have enough that are sort of not HR focused, I guess. You split up the collaboration and
Yeah,
communication.
that works for me. I think there are different ways you can cut it, and that seems like a sensible way of doing it.
Feeling good about that? Are we okay with the word enablers, or is that just the me thing?
I think, and I've got no objection to enablers.
we had it earlier.
We did, yeah.
Yes, we had all these enablers. We just and they did not make it into this week.
Can I ask a non sequitur question, just for group thinking? Timeline of this, right? And we had talked about 24, 25, like how many years is this? I think one version of this year, like how do you label it from the very beginning, at the very top? I think we had talked about this as well too. I mean, understanding it goes back and forth on the 5 years, is that too long, too short, et cetera. There's something elegant about 2025 to 2030 that brings us into the 400th anniversary of the city. You're saying that, I think that would resonate with the city, but discussion.
It's a 10-year plan.
Five.
Five. Oh, Beverly can only do math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2030.
If you count January, not now.
Okay.
But aiming at the, what is it, quarter centennial? Yeah. I had to Google it once.
I think the core of the plan focused on the 5-year period is fine.
Some of this may be.
Some of it's gonna go longer, and it took us 12 years to come back to the next version. I'm more interested, honestly, in what the review timeline is within the 5 years. And honestly, is there a refresh that happens in year 4 that takes us out to 10 years? That's not a full rewrite.
Right, that's what I was gonna say, you could, as you're nearing the 5th year, you look and see where you are, and is it still relevant? Or like there may be a whole new batch of, 5 years ago, there were things that we weren't doing yet that are now vital to what we're doing. So, the world does change pretty quickly.
At that point, I mean, you can imagine a mini check-in annually, right?
Yep.
You shouldn't change strategy annually, right? But for this idea, hey, you've got this strategy, are we still tracking? Maybe that's more seeing how you're doing against the plan, rather than cheating.
They make one nit on the prior slide than the Ken slide. This should obviously be updated to reflect wherever we land finally, but I think you have one dot in the Johnson wing.
Oh, we do, yeah.
That was bothering me.
That's fair. That's 100% fair.
On dot, you said?
Oh, it's the red dot.
And of all of the ones to have, anyway.
Although honestly, as we're talking more
But
about
it's
this
where most of the
renovation,
books are, but
it may impact the
yes.
entire complex.
But McKim is just the
Yes.
historical half. And
Yes.
yeah. Like, well,
I'm trying to figure out why that was there.
But I am very glad to get a couple comments on the graphics, including the mistakenly labeled Roxbury, because it means we're making it through the document.
That would have been a bad one.
Yes, oh, it would have been terrible. Yeah.
Curious, Michael, others, David, the implementation roadmap is much more staff-driven. I suspect this reflects your input already, but any thoughts from folks who will be living this?
Can I comment? What I'll say is, it's a lot to digest, right? And prioritization based on the limited staff is important. And also, because we don't, as much as everybody would like to, you don't have the resources to do everything that it's in here. So prioritizing, and I think that's where the trustees need to weigh in as well, because we should not be asking the staff to do everything day one.
Might not even be able to do everything that's in here within 5 years with existing resources.
So then,
What's the role of the trustees to set
so
priorities?
I think that I think it's important for us to verbalize what the verbalize some priorities.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I would be a little cautious about that because we tend to set our priorities based on what the communities need.
I understand, and we're not saying anything that's not already in here.
Sure.
And you can say, we can reverse it, right? You could say, and then just give it to, I think it's hard for the trustees to say,
Yeah.
what do you think? But if you say, here's what we propose the priorities to be, and then give something to react to, I think that's important.
And part of what the role of the trustees is to bring the community needs to the staff. I mean, we theoretically are reflective of the community, so we should be able to be that bridge between the staff and the community.
What do we?
Oh, I know.
Did you hear the theoretically at the beginning of that sentence? Theoretically, idealistically, we should be able to reflect the city, so.
So some of this as well, like there is a lot of goals related to better understanding the community and seeking that and having that feedback loop as far as what is not just data driven, but what are we hearing from the community needs that's backed up with a deeper understanding of what they need as a way to begin prioritizing.
So.
Yeah. So when you put the implementation plan together, understanding what those priorities are, for us to react, I think that's gonna be important as a next step.
Yeah, I agree. I think like we'll find out in a few minutes if you're ready to take this to the full board November 19th, 18th? 19th. And also whether a vote is likely then or shortly thereafter. And then, either way, I am hopeful that implementation planning begins January. No one, December maybe, but certainly January. What I'm unclear on right now is what our implementation process needs to be to come back to the trustees with a defined set of priorities. Because your role as trustees is certainly to approve the strategy and then hold the institution accountable for accomplishing the priorities that come out of that strategy. And if we haven't agreed on what those priorities are, that won't work. So in listening to others who have worked with the Gensler Margaret Sullivan Studios team, that they have spent a large number of months working on implementation planning.
Once the direction is approved and set.
Yeah, I mean, I
that's great.
hear what you're saying, Evelyn. I don't think this slide 37 is really actionable, but maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe it's more of a placeholder for.
Yeah. I'm not talking about that. Yeah. No, I think he means the timeline.
Yeah. And what things can we accomplish given these goals and initiatives with existing resources on a timeline that makes sense? Which things do we need additional resources for, and which things are, purely aspirational?
I mean, I guess at one point I imagined that we would, as trustees, sort of come up with a list of 15 strategic initiatives and rank them and figure out who, what resources existed and where we need more resources. But maybe what I'm hearing makes more sense, David, is for us to keep this higher level and for you and your team to come back with your proposal and for us to react to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I want to separate the implementation. Let's just take what's going to the trustees, right? And I think from some of the language that we said that I would say I'm ready to approve with the caveat of some of the things that we kind of question in the language, some fine tuning on some things that we discussed, right? So I'm ready to say yes, as long, pending revisions that we discuss here. Now, let's talk about the implementation plan. Because I think, and I have a question, and this is more like a tactical question more than anything. Is the strategic plan, is the approval that is going to the trustees inclusive of this implementation plan? And should we be and he's saying no.
Yeah.
Okay, so then this should be out of discussion as of for this moment. Because I think this needs to be thought out a little bit better based on the conversation that we just had.
Elective, right, put in the appendix if you want it, but not for discussion, not for.
Right, I
Thank you
agree
for
with that.
articulating that.
Because to me, that's a tactical
Yep.
piece that we're not ready
You
for.
could come up, I agree with that. You can imagine coming up with a version of the slide that's higher level and says that, within a certain period of time, an implementation plan is developed. And then within a certain period of time, a external communication strategy is developed and availed to the community, right? Maybe that's.
Yeah. It needs to be super high level.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get the question,
Yeah,
right?
I would-
So now here's your strategic plan, and then the trustees are gonna say, well, how long is it gonna take you to implement these things, right? So we need to come up with something, because the question's gonna be asked. But what I'm saying is, from a purpose of, you can have a high level, and then that, to what you just said, and then that's the end of it. And then more details will come out as the team develops that implementation plan. I'm just trying to take this, keep it like super high level and not pin it too detailed, because that's gonna cause problems.
Bring it back to.
This is the project manager hat talking.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Like, bring it back to the initial thinking around it, which is, these are some suggestions of where to start, which is, I think, where a lot of the language on this page went to, and remove that. Specifically, this is what to do in year 1, year 2, and maybe speak to a little bit of where we will start in the next few months. We'll be doing detailed implementation. I don't know.
Yeah, and also, with this thinking in mind, and I don't know if you want to address this now or we want to talk about it offline. If this is then gearing up for approval of the strategic plan, knowing that there's an implementation plan to follow, is that vote possible at the November 19th meeting?
Yeah, I don't think
You think it is?
what,
Or
to
not?
say the strategic plan,
Yeah.
that's the only thing for vote and not the plan?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm more maybe on it.
Do we not want to, I think it's great that we're making so much progress, but I would also think maybe the board would like time to review
Right.
it carefully and provide reactions. So hopefully we can certainly present it on the 19th.
Right.
Maybe improve it.
okay, so now I'm gonna go here, project manager hat again. Next meeting, it's not until what, January?
Unless you call a special
Call
meeting.
it first.
Unless you call a special meeting.
Right. Even if it's virtual. Do it virtual.
Yeah, I would be fine with that. I mean, I think we can.
Because I think
quick about it.
what I was expecting coming out of this meeting is that we would all agree to make a recommendation for the trustees to vote. Otherwise, you're not getting a vote until January, and I think that's too late.
It's the next one. Last Tuesday.
Yeah,
And it's gonna be difficult to convey a special meeting for so many people.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I would need to see the revised version and work through it before I would feel comfortable recommending an approval vote on November 19th.
I disagree.
Sorry, so there's a couple things for decision making, right? So one question, not pushing one way or the other, is that this group here of trustees feels comfortable enough to present this at the November 19th board meeting for discussion, right? Another version is that this group feels comfortable enough to both present and recommend a vote at that time. So those two options. The third actually is an option that we don't feel comfortable right? And we want another meeting of the exec committee until we do feel comfortable.
Sorry, guys, hey, I'm from the outside listening and I'm sorry about this. So the implementation plan, is that the only catch here for people?
I think we need to see the updated version. But I think what we're hearing is that people are generally comfortable, I think, presenting it to the board.
Yeah, I'm saying that, I mean, we can just go around the table.
We have a vote on these slides.
Yeah.
That's John Hyler, FYI, on the call.
Yes, sorry, people.
So just as because I'm looking at the document itself, right? What I'm seeing is like, we go through, I don't know what page it is, but basically an implementation roadmap. If we sort of struck that from this current document, then going through then the next slide as well. So it's only the strategic plan, not the implementation roadmap.
Correct.
Would we feel comfortable recommending that?
I think what Christian is saying is we discussed changing the language in certain things, and he's not comfortable until it's finalized to vote on it.
Because you're talking about
And
the
that's fair.
changes that we discussed
Chair.
today. Yeah. You're talking about the changes.
Yeah,
that we discussed today.
I don't know, I don't really feel like we need to rush to a vote on the 19th.
I disagree with you, because then it's too late.
I'd like to present it, and I'd like people to have a chance to review it and think about it, but that's just my view.
Too late. It's too late.
No,
Then-
but I think I like to think, sorry, I mean, we can talk offline about this. I like to think that we can do a special meeting in December. That was sort of always in my head.
By the way, I think this is so important, and I do think to get this done by the end of the year is critical. I'm willing to, and I thought every meeting was special, but I'm good for one more. I do think we're so close to this, and if we don't want people to revise and look at it and review it at the December 19th meeting, then I think trying to get one more meeting together, even if it's from Zoom, just to refine it. I'd be for that so we can move forward. I'm just afraid of getting it pushed into next year.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll make, I mean, I guess this is the chair's prerogative, I'll make a suggestion that essentially that, I don't know whether it needs a formal vote, that we present this pending revisions, right, at the November 19th meeting without any expectation of a vote, right? And the idea would be, but before that, right, maybe, I don't know whether folks need to see the next reiteration before feeling that you want to put this in front of the board. Mike, okay, go on. Yep, Joe.
Oh, I was going to suggest, so I think following up on what you were saying, Ray, is that we make the revisions, which to me don't sound major.
Right.
They're not tweaks, but they're not major. We get it to the board, I guess that's 2 weeks from today, right? Or 2 weeks, whatever it is. So 2 weeks from tomorrow. We present it to the board. We all, and Christian and Jose and their committee, including me, I guess, have been living with this a lot closer than a lot of people. The trustees, a lot of them are going to be seeing this, not for the first time, but I don't know that they're going to want to necessarily
vote,
dive into it. One of the reasons we have a committee is to do the work. It may be that we can present it with no specific expectation, but the trustees at that point may say, I guess one of two things, let's vote on this tonight or this morning, whatever it is, because we think, the work has been great and we're ready to do it. Or, you know what, we really need a few more weeks or a month to think about this. So why don't we have a special meeting? So kind of maybe leave the decision up to the sense of the trustees at the November meeting. I don't know, is that feasible?
What I was saying for a special meeting was for us. I think you present it to the board November 19th, but they're going to have their own questions. There's some people that are really engaged in this that are going to have questions and concerns. And I think asking for a vote when they've never seen it, it's a tough one. So, but at the same time, I don't think you want to open it all back up for overall discussion. I think, Ray, one of the things that we need to come to a decision as a committee is saying, look, we'll accept some refinements and but this is where we're heading. We want you to review it. I just think you've got to set some ground rules so it doesn't open up a whole can of worms.
Yes.
Great.
If I could just add that all of the resources, every single draft has been presented to the trustees on the resources, every single timeline, every single document that has been shared and reviewed or anything is all available on the online portal. So this is not going to be the first time that the trustees will see it. They have seen it multiple times and they've been invited to all of these meetings and the strategic planning committee meetings. So those that wanted to engage had the opportunity to chime in. It won't be the first time to see it.
Could I just make one comment on page 39? Aaron, this is more of a, just a clarification, but I don't think we actually acknowledge the strategic planning committee on this slide, do we? We have the steering group. So that seems like an omission if that's the
There's a
case.
few other problems with this slide as well.
Yeah.
So I would consider replacing the steering group with the strategic planning committee of the board, or putting the strategic planning committee between the board and the steering group. I also find it odd to describe the board of trustees as a BPL partner. I would strike the reference to board of trustees. Right, I mean, that seems an odd way of characterizing.
And I sent an email to Aaron and David about this earlier. It's really, that group is not our internal BPL partners. They're really just BPL partners.
Correct.
There's a lot of edits to this slide that need to happen.
Yeah.
And if they could be sent through in whatever format via David directly to me, that would be super helpful.
I do need to be leaving soon. So
Yeah, the only reason I would say to not leave it open-ended is it sets expectations from the very beginning of what's the expectation of the group, right? And I would say that this is important enough that you don't want anybody in the board to feel ramrodded through.
Sure.
So take a look.
Right, 100%.
I'm comfortable with, I think that we can get, I feel confident we can get a special meeting on the books, at least virtual with a quorum.
I'm sure we can do that.
December.
Especially if it's Zoom or hybrid.
I agree.
When you say a special meeting, you mean the whole trustee?
Yep.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
quorum of trustees. Yep.
Okay.
And does it have to be in person?
It's not, I
Nope.
don't think so. But I know it's
Nope.
complicated.
Look, if you're a trustee and you're gonna do a Zoom and you're gonna approve the strategic plan, I don't see how you cannot try to figure it out. We might lose a couple, but I really do think you got a great board here that'll do that special meeting.
Yep. Comfortable with that plan?
Yes.
Okay. So there's no, we're not expecting a vote then?
So we're not voting today?
Or should we, do we have to vote to present it? I guess we don't.
No, that's Ray's agenda.
No, but don't you think it's important for the full board to hear that this is, we haven't voted on it yet, but this is, we're all behind this, like as Evelyn
Yes.
said earlier,
Yes.
we're in favor. We're all behind this, but we wanted to vote in unison.
Do we need to vote on that
It
then?
needs to be a recommendation.
That you should
Okay,
present
then
it
I
to
think we go around and do a recommendation that this is where we're heading.
How about a sense of the committee?
Maybe we can revise the wording.
Yes.
If you can go back and, if you want me to revise the wording, for example, we'll say the trustees recommend this plan, instead of saying vote to accept and implement, maybe to review the strategic plan as discussed and presented, so that it will be, and then to be voted on at a special meeting in December or something like that. Or
I mean, this is not, it's just not a little bit formalistic. I think, like, should we not just all
feel like-
confirm that we agreed and Ray at the board meeting can say this, the executive committee that supports this
That's where I'm
plan.
gonna go with that.
Just
We
remember
welcome your
that-
comments and review.
Yeah.
And we'll have a special meeting to approve it
Yep.
later in the summer.
And I think we'll have more than my voice, right? We
Yeah.
want to have you and Jose as well too.
Present and review.
I say to
Okay.
review, and the language to say. Present and review.
There we
Is
go.
that correct? Did I
I
get
don't care that much, but why do we need a vote?
Yeah, I don't think we need a vote.
Why
It's kind
can't,
of like when the finance and audit committee presented.
Yes, but I think Ray's saying, hey, 100% of the executive committee and the strategic planning committee are behind this, and we want you to review it. I think that's really important to get across that we're all 100% behind it.
It may be worth checking with members of the strategic planning committee who are trustees and not here, like Cheryl, to confirm that she would be comfortable with that statement. But I agree with you, John.
I think this statement is benign enough, right? I can call for this vote. Right, just to say
Yeah.
present and review, and we have a form for that, so voted, I call for a vote that trustees executive committee of the Public Library of the City of Boston vote to recommend to the Board of Trustees to present and review the strategic plan as discussed and presented.
And to the Board of Trustees.
And to the.
You'll have, I think we vote to present and just get rid of that whole recommend to the Board of
vote
Trustees.
and
Present and review to the Board of Trustees.
The strategic plan.
And get rid of present and review on that, yeah.
But,
Everyone can read it.
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? So moved. I appreciate it, everyone. I mean, I don't know for everyone else, but feel really good about where we're landing right now and where we're going. Dare I say, inspiring, and super thanks to great work for the staff, Gensler, Jose, and Christian for leading this charge. And I feel like after a long bunch of months, we are in a really, really great place. The others
Well done,
agree?
guys.
Well done, really well done. This was impressive. Good job, Jose and Christian.
Right.
Seriously.
Thank you, everyone.
No problem.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Great.
Good night.
Meeting is adjourned. Very nice. Thanks, guys. Really well done.
20 minutes to spare. Yeah.